Hi, my name is Sara Soltau. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and I was the first education programs manager to be hired at 90.5 WUOL Classical Louisville. We're a 24/7 classical station in the city of Louisville, which is about 1 million people, and we're part of a larger organization called Louisville Public Media, which hosts 3 different format stations. Thank you so much for having me this morning as a Local That Works finalist. For me, creating education programs is not about checking a box. It goes far beyond the number of students we reach. The real impact comes from being present with a child, listening to them, and inviting them into your professional world. It's about creating high-quality educational programming and bringing it to everyone. Music is powerful. I believe classical music is relevant. And music education is disappearing from our schools. By investing our resources in education, we are not only investing in the future of public radio, but we are also investing in the future of our communities. This is a picture of Lockhoff Elementary. I'm doing an outreach visit there. So I was hired at 90.5 WUOL at the beginning of 2015. They already had some education programs in place, but they needed someone with the time to invest in them, which is why they created my position. I saw an opportunity to do more and reach people who we weren't reaching, because I believe everyone deserves a high-quality education. When developing our education programs, my goals were to 1, empower kids because their voice is important, 2, to inspire curiosity, encourage questions and new ideas, and 3, include everyone and shake up the stuffy stereotypes of classical music. This picture is a child at the Islamic School of Louisville holding a tissue paper flower that we make with all the kids before telling them a musical story of Ferdinand the Bull. Over the past 2.5 years, I expanded our programs by adding face-to-face experiences, featured more youth on the radio, and produced online content geared at families. We named our education programs Music for Everyone, which is inspired by the words of one of my favorite composers and music educators, Kodai. A quick background on myself: I had a little bit of experience in radio, mostly in community and college radio, but most of my training is as a classical violinist and a teacher. When I first came to the job, I wanted to use my background as a performer to connect to the students and teachers we were trying to support. I created the Sharing Music, Sharing Stories program. This is part of a poster that the public library designed for us when I did a tour with them. I've visited over 2,000 students, mostly in small classroom settings. I perform interactive musical stories where kids get to speak, sing, and clap along. I also interview them about why they love music and then produce 30-second radio promos, which we play on our station. And as our outreach programs have grown, we have partnered with the local puppeting company, Squallis Puppeteers, which explains that giant monster in the picture. I'm going to play an example of a promo that we air from a school called Jacob Elementary. They're a labeled at-risk school in Jefferson County, and they've also benefited from our instrument donation program, which met all of the needs in Jefferson County last year. Along with doing outreach to the school, we donated 30 new instruments to them thanks to a generous donor. These kids are tiny elementary students, and they had just full-size string instruments. They couldn't even reach their hands to the fingerboard, so we were able to get them the correct size. And here are their voices now.
I love music because it expresses my feelings.
It really gets me in my moment.
I just love music.
Music expresses myself in ways that I can't explain.
I love music because it just makes me happy.
We are Jacob Elementary. You're listening to Classical 90.5.
Oops. So outside of the school year, we've also focused on reaching families in the summer months through our program, Summer Listening. I expanded the Summer Listening program by adding free events, themed radio shows, online resources, a Share Your Story contest for kids, and lots of great partnerships. I wanted to create varied programming to engage people with classical music in new ways, and about roughly a third of our Summer Listening audience has never heard our station before. This is a video by Tyler Franklin, who also did a lot of the photographs in this presentation, and it's to promote our Summer Listening program last July. And you might have noticed the PNC Bank logo at the end there. They've been a huge supporter of ours, and they actually gave us $100,000 last year to help us increase our educational programming. So we started out in 2013 with Summer Listening, reaching 13 families. Last year we reached more than 1,000. We kicked off down at the waterfront for the 4th of July with our Conduct a Jug Band booth. Then we hosted a Kites and Classical event where we broadcasted classical music over the Great Four lawn down by the river, and we collaborated with the local art and craft museum to make kites with kids. The last 3 summers, we've also included a week of radio programming and a live broadcast called The Unheard, which features composers who were left out of the classical canon because of their race or gender. This year we moved it from our studios to the Muhammad Ali Center, who was born in Louisville. We had a musicologist from Vanderbilt, singers of the Black Classical Artists of Louisville, and a string quartet from the Louisville Orchestra, who premiered a lost work by Florence Price. Florence Price was the first African-American female composer to have her work performed by a major symphony orchestra. And we wrapped up with a film screening of The Little Prince opera by Rachel Portman down at the Kentucky Center for the Performing Arts. We did crafts in the lobby and had a giant puppet mingle. And we showed the opera and had a coloring table in front of the screen to make it more welcoming for little ones. And I had a parent that came up afterwards that said, "Thank you so much. My daughter loves opera now because she got to color pieces of pizza during the whole thing." So it's important to remember that we cater these to kids, and sometimes they just want to color pieces of pizza. After doing outreach in the schools and getting to know kids and families throughout the summer, we wanted to go further and create a resource that filled a need. A resource that served kids during the process of making it and also in the outcome. Only a third of schools, elementary schools and JCPS have music teachers, only a third of the elementary schools. I believe general music is crucial to a young child's development. Not only can music connect to core content areas in engaging ways, but music also encourages self-expression and confidence. Working with radio can build a child's personal voice, and learning by listening develops skills for school, but also personal interactions. By the way, this picture was taken at an outreach visit at Americana, which is a community center that serves a lot of the refugee and immigrant children in our city. To help address some of the needs in our community, I came up with the Music Box, which is an educational podcast for pre-K through 5th grade, which we recently launched the first episode. It's different than a typical podcast because it's recorded in the classroom. The kids help come up with a script and the teachers give input along the way. We have also partnered with a curriculum specialist from the school district to create resources for teachers that integrate core standards. Our next step is to take the podcast into the classroom and start testing it. The podcast also connects kids outside of the classroom through our webpage where they can upload their final projects and listen to other schools' submissions. Now here's a clip from the podcast preview.
I have this time machine. starting. Come quick, quick, come in.
We're taking classical music out of the box and giving you the inspiration and tools to compose your stories into music.
You're listening to the Music Box.
Join us for lots of musical adventures with kids just like you from classrooms all around our community who made this podcast possible. We'll be learning about composers from long ago.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
Guten Tag! My name is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and I am a composer. And a superhero!
Just go with it.
And composers living today.
We're the Harmony Performance Ensemble.
Today we're interviewing Rachel Grimes.
Rachel Grimes is a composer who lives in Carroll County, Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. A, for having me today, and I'm so glad to meet you guys. I'm Rachel Grimes. I think maybe you guys might be composers too.
And this picture is from Lincoln Elementary, the 4th grade orchestra class who helped write the script for our second episode. And this is an example of a worksheet that I gave them before I came for the first class to start brainstorming ideas for the episode. People have always been worried about the future of classical music. I was hired at WUOL to manage the education programs, but also to get more young people listening to classical music. When thinking about how to sustain classical music, I often think about this metaphor told to me by Jeff Todd Tutton, who's a retired professor at Brown. He said, "One of the maxims of organic gardening is not to feed the plant, but to feed the soil. If you keep the soil in its proper condition, the plant will flourish." The soil represents the culture that encourages music. When thinking of sustainability, we need to sustain the cultural soil and not be too worried about what kind of plant is growing. Public radio can be the cultural soil in this equation. It's a binding force in our communities, a connector, and inspires us to be curious about the arts and the world around us. We are planting the seeds in that soil by investing in music education. And our education programs seem to be sustaining themselves. We have grown from 14 family signups in 2013 and summer listening to almost 1,000 in 2017. Over 600 people attended our 3 free events we hosted last July. Last school year, we met all of the instrument needs in the Jefferson County public school system, and we reached new counties in our broadcast area and donated more instruments annually than we ever have in the program's existence since 2003. We started with a grant of $60,000 in 2015 to increase our education programming. Since then, we have received $150,000 from donors and foundations, which doesn't include our repair funds for the instruments. These numbers are impressive, but what I am most proud of is our impact. If you're looking to grow the community impact at your station, I highly recommend creating positions in education. Other major arts organizations, including public television, have education departments, so why doesn't public radio? This is a picture from Bloom Elementary. I'm interviewing kids for a radio promo after a musical story time. When I took this job, I thought the hardest part was going to be convincing kids that classical music is cool, and I was totally wrong. The hard part is the exposure. If you create a positive, engaging, and interactive experience, it becomes obvious that kids connect to classical music. So when I go into a classroom, the kids are talking, they have a lot of energy, they don't know who I am, they're not sure if they should listen to me yet, but as soon as I get out my violin and start to play, the whole atmosphere changes, and I've realized how important performance is as part of an outreach effort. So I'm going to show you. I want you all to imagine that you have tissue paper flowers in front of you, like one of the first lines. And whenever I say, Ferdinand loved to smell the flowers, at this time all the kids would go, ah, as the sound effect for the story. Who knows the story of Ferdinand the Bull? Yeah, it was written back in the 1930s by Monroe Leaf. And it's a story of a little bull who loves to smell the flowers instead of fight, and he's fine being just the way he is. I want you to listen to how the violin, how the composer, Alan Rideau, creates different sounds on the violin to make each character come to life. Once upon a time in Spain, there was a little bull, and his name was Ferdinand. All the other bulls he lived with would run and jump and butt their heads together. But not Ferdinand. He liked to sit just quietly and smell the flowers. Thank you.
Is she challenging some of the things we think about what we could do? Let me tell you one fact. What's the full-time staffing that is allocated within Louisville Public Media to WUOL? It's under 3 people. I don't want to hear this anymore about my station's too small. We don't have any money. Yeah. There's a time when we should look at talent, leadership, initiative, and say the future of public media is more local. And if we can find people like we have up here today, we'll get there.